Hello, everyone. This is David, and tonight's movie that we watched is the 2012 movie The Grabbers. Now, this is a really fun movie. It actually reminds me a lot, in a lot of ways, of the movie Slither. Um, just because it's a sort of modern comedy horror that's not like silly funny, but like there's just stuff about it that it's not like a really dark. It's very humorous in that regard. Um, Even though there might be terrible, horrible things happening, uh, it's quite amusing to watch. So um, let's go into the grabbers themselves for a moment. So what are these creatures? So the grabbers are basically the best way to describe them is they're kind of like a land octopus. It's like an alien land octopus. Well, it's not really a land octopus, but it can come onto land. Um, they're not really like an octopus. They're kind of like a ball covered in tentacles that just sort of, to get around on land, it doesn't like lift itself up. It just sort of rolls, grabs with its legs and rolls itself. It's kind of an interesting form of locomotion. It doesn't have any eyes or whatnot, as far as I could tell. It just has this interesting mouth, which has like its teeth like form like into like a swirl almost. It's really weird. You kind of have to see it to understand it, but like it's this really bizarre creature. Um, it kind of reminds me of what would happen if you took a sea urchin and gave it tentacles, except it's soft-bodied like a squid or an octopus. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. They don't have a lot of special abilities, other than what you might assume. They can kind of climb on things pretty well. They can move pretty quick, and they're freakishly strong. One of them, one of the grabbers, does horizon toss a guy at one point. So that's quite impressive. But in terms of like special abilities, they can apparently detect people somehow. They never really go into that. They don't really have eyes, again, as far as I could tell. So I don't think their vision is based on movement, like the T-Rex, if you will. But yeah, they get around pretty well. They roam around on ground, on the earth, and they need water to stay warm, and they need human blood. Well, any blood, I guess, to stay alive. That's what they need. And it's implied heavily that they come from space, because the opening of the movie shows this meteor crashing down, and then the grabbers start attacking. So we assume they come from space, but one can never be sure. Like it's implied that that's basically where they come from. So that's the grabbers. Let's get to the movie. So the basics of this movie is quite comical. Basically, there's this guy Carrion, and he's this alcoholic sheriff, and he gets this new partner, Lisa, who's basically this workaholic that gets sent in for like a temporary shift on this island. That's off Ireland. I didn't catch the island's name, but they find these mutilated whales. There's the opening scene before that actually is there's a meteor crashing down. A boat sees it. They thought it was a signal flare. One of the guys was like, it wasn't a flare. Then the boat gets attacked and everyone disappears. Next day, mutilated whales wash up. One of them attacks a guy named Patty, and he manages to knock it out, or he thinks he kills it by stomping it to death. He brings it in, and the biologist looks at it. He's like, I don't know what the hell this is. Brings in the sheriff and Lisa, and they're like, what the crap is that? And they originally were gonna, I forget what they were gonna do. I think they were gonna, no, they didn't burn it just yet. So they're like, okay, they're looking into that, and then they check out the sea caves where it must be hanging out, because they find basically a bunch of people get attacked and disappear all around the island. And they're investigating, and they find it in the sea cave, and it chases them out, and they're like, holy crap. So they go back to the one that they have in captivity that's basically dead, and they light it on fire and beat it to death, and it doesn't die, like, at all. So that's a thing. What they figure out, though, is they get Lisa really drunk, because she's like the healthiest one among them. And they feed it some of her blood, and it dies from that. So from that, they conclude that you if it drinks your blood and you're intoxicated, and I mean really intoxicated, not just like buzzing or anything. I think they read her alcohol level, her blood alcohol level as like 0.2, which is ridiculous if I remember correctly. Like, I think 0.02 is what it takes to get like to pulled over for drunk driving. Fucking 0.2 is ridiculous. It's way too much blood. Or way too much blood. That's way too much alcohol. So they're like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, they decide to get everyone shit-faced and basically say, hey, free drinks at the bar tonight because we're having a crazy party. They can't just say there's crazy monsters outside and they hate fucking alcohol, so get drunk. Nope, free alcohol. So they all come there, and it's going nuts. And the monsters attack, and the babies show up. These little eggs hatch, and they become these little like worm-looking things. They're kind of cute, honestly. And they're attacking outside. They attack this one guy, and they grab onto his face, and then what happens next? They grab onto his face. They get it off his face. They pull it off, throw it down, and then the big one shows up, and the big one just like eats him and spits out his head, because apparently that's what they do. They just chomp you up. I don't know why they do that if they drink blood. I'm a little confused as to that, but sure, whatever. It's an alien monster. Who knows what they actually need, right? So that's going on. Like they flip out. As a note, the only person who's not getting drunk here is the sheriff, who is in fact an alcoholic. So that's kind of an interesting twist on it, if you will. So the attack's going on, and nothing seems to be working. Well, they're just trying to wait this out for the grabber to go basically away once the storm passes. But bad stuff starts happening. The grabbers get in. They move everyone upstairs. Everyone's freaking out because there's monsters running all around. And they figure out that they need to get rid of the big grabber because he's gonna get them if they don't do something. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna take him to the construction area, hoist him up with a crane, and like leave him up there so he can dry out in the sun because he needs to stay wet. So they do this thing where Lisa goes down to get the keys. The big grabber starts getting into the building. They convince it. She gets the keys. She nail guns one of the babies to a table, which was quite funny. They get the keys. They drive off. The big grabber chases them. They go to the construction yard. There's a big brawl with the grabber. Basically, the grabber basically gets the sheriff. The sheriff has this bottle of moonshine that Patty made. As it's gonna eat him, he pours that down his throat. It basically gets sick, throws him down. There's also like petrol or gasoline, and he lights that on fire with the flare gun he had and burns it to death. And that is the end of the grabbers. Now, there's a lot more going on than just that, but that's the basics of the movie. There's a lot of little stuff happening. I kind of brushed over things, but I mean, this is a really fun movie. I suggest going to watch this. Oh, and there is a final shot of the eggs that were seen at the beach. They start to hatch. So, maybe they're not dead. So this one's a pretty good one. I'd definitely check it out. It's a real fun romp. It reminded me a lot of the movie Slither. So there you go. Definitely not for the kiddies. This is a little bit more adult. Not terribly gory, but there's some scenes of some pretty crazy stuff going on. There's some language in there, so definitely not for the young kids. But this one's a fine one. It's a good fun time. So definitely check it out, and I'll see you next time. All right, good night, folks.